In terms of my own experience with getting serious about creating the skill of confidence, is it's a game changer. The more that you build confidence in your life, the greater the risks you're going to take. And that's critical in business, in life, for fulfillment. I also have the ability to say no and not even be bothered by what other people are going to feel. Why? Because I have the skill of confidence. It also makes you an incredible negotiator because you realize you would rather be respected than be liked. And see, this kind of need to be liked or to look good is part of the reason why you doubt yourself all the time. I want you to bring that power back internally. That's what the skill of confidence does. And you'll also be able to recognize when you're afraid of something and that fear is just kind of bullshit in your head. And you have a choice. You don't have to let fear stop you anymore. And that's where the skill of confidence comes in. And the same is going to be true for you. So I think it kind of begs the question. If confidence is something that we all want, why is it so hard to master? I'll tell you why. Because when it comes to the research around confidence, it is some of the most dry, boring, no offense to the confidence researchers and writers out there, but I'm talking if you have trouble sleeping, just print out a study about confidence. That'll put you into deep REM sleep. It's also confusing. And even Google isn't much of a help on this topic. If you search how to be confident, you know what the top results, one of them says? Be true to you. What the hell does that even mean? Be true to you. And honestly, be true to you, that is not what the research says. The problem and why it's hard for people to develop the skill of confidence is the research has not been boiled down into tactical information that you can apply to your day-to-day life. And that's where your friend Mel Robbins comes in. So here's your first assignment on today's podcast, because you know we're not just listening here. This is a doing podcast, and we're going to make this tactical and relevant immediately. Assignment number 1, be selfish as you listen. I want you to listen a particular way. I want you to listen and think, what's in it for me? And so let me ask you a question to help you get really selfish. If you had more confidence, like I could go and boom, you have more confidence than you've ever had in your entire life, how would your life be different? How would your future be different? Now, Heather has already shared that she has this awesome promotion, which she clearly earned. I mean, businesses don't just give those out as charity. If a business has promoted or hired you, they believe in your ability to execute. But now she's freaking out. She doesn't have the confidence. Now, when you think about confidence, how would more confidence help Heather's life be different? Well, confidence would allow Heather to step into that role, right? And she would be able to lose the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome and the panicking. And she'd be able to act like the leader that the organization promoted her to be, right? Without all the nervousness and crap going on in her head. What about you? Let's get selfish. What would more confidence allow you to do that you're not currently doing? Would you be able to say no? Would you be better with boundaries? Are there more risks you would take? Is there a conversation you've been avoiding with yourself or someone else? Would you be able to stand up for yourself, advocate more for yourself, ask for what you need? What about work? Would you be more visible? Would you speak up more? All of that you just envisioned, it's all within your reach. And so let's talk about something that Heather said. Heather said in her question that she doesn't, quote, feel confident in the new role. I don't feel confident. And so I want to start by giving you a definition of confidence that will change your ability to build it as a skill. This definition of confidence I have been sharing for years, and I think I created it based on the research because I haven't really seen it out there before. And this definition is going to surprise you because it's a definition of confidence that puts the research into action. See, here's the mistake that everybody makes. Heather made the mistake because she said that I don't, quote, feel confident. And I bet you're making this mistake with confidence too. In my book, based on the research, that's where we get it wrong. Confidence is not a feeling. Confidence is embodied in action. My definition of confidence is the willingness to try. I'm going to say it again. Your new definition of confidence, embodied by the research. Confidence is the willingness to try. Confidence is an action. That's what it is. And this phenomenon has been heavily researched by social psychologists, and there's even a term for confidence being an action. See, there's this positive feedback loop that happens when you're willing to try something before you feel ready, when you're willing to step into that leadership role and put yourself out there and take risks and make mistakes and shove that self-doubt to the side. When you're willing to try, neuroscience research says that you create something called a confidence-competence loop. And let me explain this to you because there's a lot of common sense here, right? Every single time you try something new, you're either going to be really good at it or you're going to be terrible at it, right? But you always learn something. But you have to try. So Heather is going to step into this new role. She's trying out a new role. She's either going to be really good at it or she's going to be miserable at it. Boundaries, you might be really good at it when you start trying to set them. You might be really miserable at it. But here's the thing. If you try something for the first time, you're either going to fail or succeed, but you always learn something. And that's where this confidence-competence loop and the neuroscience research comes in. Because even when you try, when you learn a little something, you gain a little competency, right? Because of everything that you learned the first time around, it gets a little bit easier. It gets a little bit better, but it all begins with being willing to try, no matter where you're starting from. Because if you are the kind of person that's always willing to try, you will always grow and you will always learn. And the more that you try and the more that you learn, the less you doubt yourself, the less resistance that you have, and bada bing, bada boom, all of a sudden you feel confident in this new role. All of a sudden you feel confident doing a backflip off a boat because you tried 1,000 times and you belly flopped and you embarrassed yourself and you got a wedgie. And then what do you know? Because you were willing to keep trying, all of that competency that got gained of trying over and over and over and over again, it's how you gained mastery. See, feeling confident is kind of, it's almost like the wrong way to say it, because that's what you feel after you've done it over and over and over again. But true confidence begins the moment you're willing to try. Okay? And so I really think it's important. I can give you another example. The first time somebody handed me chopsticks, I had no idea how to use them. Was I nervous about picking them up and I couldn't get like my fingers to twist in the way that you're supposed to, and it was super embarrassed and they kept like flipping across the table and everybody. Here's the thing. I didn't know how to use them, but isn't it common sense that there's no way I was going to learn how to use them if I wasn't willing to try? See, being confident and the skill of confidence is the difference between saying, sure, hand me the chopsticks. I'd love to try. I'm willing to look like an idiot. I'm willing to be a beginner first, versus going, can you get me a fork? I don't know how to use those. Do you see the difference? The skill begins with being willing to try. So many of you saw me on the Today Show today. That is the culmination of 10 years of being willing to try, being willing to walk on a stage and have a panic attack or a neck rash, being willing to get behind a microphone and make terrible content or say stupid things or look terrible in videos. You got to remember what you're seeing is a person on the Today Show who has been working hard for 10 years, trying over and over and over and over and learning and failing. That's what you're witnessing. You're witnessing competency, but the skill is something different. The skill of confidence is trying. And, let me remind you of a fact. Everybody starts at zero. Everyone. Whether you're trying to learn guitar or you're building a social media following or you want to get into the YouTube space or you're writing a book or you're selling, everybody starts at zero. That's how I started. 0 speeches given, zero television experience, zero social media following, zero email addresses, zero competency in front of a camera or on a microphone. I mean, even take this podcast. Starting this, I started at zero. The tech is intimidating. There are 5 million podcasts on Spotify alone. I'm 54 years old. I don't know how to do that. I haven't done this before. I haven't been in the seat of the person that hosts. But here's the difference with your friend Mel Robbins. I'm willing to try. I lean on this skill of confidence that I've built because I have the definition that's grounded in research. And so do you. You're not going to feel confident. You're going to act in accordance with the research of confidence. You, my friend, are willing to try. That's the secret. You know, I'm going to tell you a story. A lot of you have seen my TEDx talk. So I have one of the most popular and most viewed TEDx talks in the world. I think it's got almost 30 million views at this point. It's a TED Talk called How to Stop Screwing Yourself Over. And if you watch my 21-minute long TED Talk, you know what you're witnessing? You are witnessing a 21-minute long panic attack. That was the first official speech I had ever given in my entire life. I was terrified of public speaking. And most people are terrified of public speaking. When I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, college, law school, whenever I got called on in class, bright red. My mind would immediately go blank. The only job I got out of law school was working for legal aid as a public defender in New York City. And when I had to stand in court all day, I was not talking to an audience. I'm talking to a judge and a bailiff and police officers and the prosecutor. It's not like some big stadium. You're in a small courtroom where you see the same people day in and day out. That's not a speech. That's like talking in a meeting at work. But nevertheless, I was so afraid of speaking out loud as a new attorney. I would get these monster neck rashes all over my neck and chest. You know, the kind of rashes that people get when they're nervous or they've had too much to drink or they get an allergic reaction to food. That was Mel Robbins. The early years. You know how I dealt with that neck rash and that fear? I would wrap a scarf around my neck or I'd wear a turtleneck as an attempt to try to hide it. In fact, even when I became an on-air commentator for CNN, I was part of their legal team in terms of providing commentary for CNN. I did that for 3 or 4 years. Incredible experience. Never done that before. Why was I willing to do that, knowing that half the time my cheeks would turn bright red, half the time I'd be worried that I might say something stupid? I'll tell you why. Because I understand the skill of confidence. You build it by being willing to try. You have to start at zero, and nobody wants to start at zero. You want to step into this new role and think that you have it all figured out. Well, guess what? You don't, because you've never done this before. But if you're willing to try, if you're willing to make mistakes, if you're willing to understand that by showing up every day and trying and learning and failing and falling on your face and dusting yourself off and like putting in the work, eventually the competency catches up. And what neuroscience says is what you're actually experiencing when you can use chopsticks because you've been trying, or when you can stand on a stage and you don't have a neck rash that looks like you just got stung by a bee and you're about to go into anaphylactic shock. When you can do that, you want to know why you can do that? It's because the number of times that you've tried have lowered the resistance in your own brain and body to doing it. And so it feels easier. It feels effortless. It's not that you're, quote, more confident. It's that you've built up the competency so that you know how to do it without even thinking about it. And so that's why your friend Mel is so successful, because I'm willing to, A, start at zero, and I'm willing to keep showing up over and over and over and trying, despite my doubt, despite my fire engine red cheeks, despite my flushed neck. I've not only gained the competency and settled those nerves, but over time, by doing exactly what I'm about to teach you to do. I went from somebody who was terrified of public speaking to becoming one of the most talented, respected, and requested and booked public speakers in the entire world. That's what's available to you today. And so the other thing I want to talk about really quickly is I know that what you think you're up against, Heather, and if you're struggling with confidence, is that, oh, imposter syndrome. I got imposter syndrome. Well, no shit, you have imposter syndrome because you haven't done this before. See, I see imposter syndrome as a really good thing because when you feel like an imposter in a role, that's just a fancy way of saying you're trying something new. And so starting today, if you're in the game of building confidence, everybody, you got to open your arms. You got to reach out for that imposter syndrome. Because if you don't have imposter syndrome, you're not doing anything uncomfortable. And if there's one thing I've learned in life after 54 years is that it's only by making yourself face things that are uncomfortable that you're going to grow into the best version of yourself. If you always do the things that you're comfortable doing, you will never, ever, ever experience what might be possible because you're not pushing yourself. And so I don't want you to fear imposter syndrome. I want you to see it as a good thing. Oh, I feel like an imposter. Great. I'm trying something new. This is confidence building. Here we go. And speaking of the myth that imposter syndrome is a bad thing, no. You're learning when it comes to building confidence, you got to embrace that imposter syndrome period because it means you're trying and you're learning and you're gaining competency. And we love that around here. I'm going to teach you 3 other myths about confidence. I'm going to use a question from a listener named Alex to help us unpack it. But first, we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors because they help me bring this toolkit to you at zero cost. And then we're going to be right back with Alex's question and those 3 myths about confidence. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Mel Robbins, and today we are talking confidence, the science, and most importantly, 5 tools that you need in your life to build the skill of confidence. And we're about to jump into 3 myths related to confidence with a question from a listener named Alex.
Hey Mel, it's Alex here. Can you talk about how to thrive around high achievers when you're not naturally an extrovert or someone with great confidence? I'm trying to succeed at university and this is something I find super challenging.
Alex, great question. And this allows us to talk about myth number 1 about confidence. And that myth is that confident people are the loudest and most extroverted in the room. So first things first, Alex, stop beating yourself up because you're a little bit more introverted. And what I can tell based on your question is that you do want to be more visible. You do want to have a breakthrough in the skill of confidence because you do want to be somebody that's contributing your ideas. And so I want to tell you the truth about confident people. Confident people are very often the quiet people in the room because there's a huge difference between confidence and bravado. They're not the same thing. Confidence has nothing to do with swagger. It has nothing to do with how much you talk or blab on in class. If you're truly confident, you've built that skill, you don't have to prove anything to anybody because you know that confidence is simply being willing to try. It's not about being extroverted or introverted because confidence is not a personality trait. Confidence is a skill that you can build. And so I want you to also be honest with yourself. Go back to being selfish in this episode because you're talking about, quote, these high achievers and you're not naturally an extrovert. If you're selfish, Alex, how would the skill of confidence change the way you're showing up? Because if you answer my question to you with the answer, oh, I would talk more in class. Oh, I would advocate more for my ideas. Oh, I would raise my hand and I would put my name in the ring for certain opportunities before, stopping myself and thinking about it. If you can answer that question, how the skill of confidence would change the way you're showing up, great. Then use the definition of confidence now to push yourself to try those things that you believe that more confidence would be having you do. Because that's how you're going to build competency in those things you're not doing now. Let me tell you the second myth about confidence. See, a lot of people believe that confidence is built when you're winning. Not true. Not true. The truth is that confidence is like steel. It's forged in the fire of your life. You don't create the skill of confidence when life is easy. Confidence, that reserve, that skill that you build, it's created in the moments that are hard. Confidence requires you to try. It requires you to feel like an imposter. It requires you to start at zero. It requires you to do things that you've never done before. And if you're naturally more introverted, sometimes speaking in class can be as scary as jumping out of an airplane, and going skydiving. But that's okay, because you can try and you can fail and your cheeks can turn bright red and you can say something that doesn't sound that like PhD sounding. And you know what? You're not going to die. It's going to be okay, because you're willing to try and learn. And that's what's at the heart of this skill. It's not judgment. It's curiosity. It's leaning forward. It's trying. It's action. And here's the third myth about confidence. And that is, I often hear people say, I lost my confidence. Nope, you didn't. The truth is, you cannot lose confidence. See, you're just blocked from the feeling of it because you stopped trying, which is the source of it. So let me give you an example. If you sit there and say, oh, I must have lost some confidence along the way because now I'm around all these great achievers and they're always talking in class and I feel like a complete idiot, blah, bitty, blah, bitty, blah. No, you haven't lost anything, because what's the definition of confidence? Confidence is the willingness to try. And you're in a chapter of your life where life is testing you. If you're around all these high achievers, it's because you belong there. And it's because you're meant to grow. And that resistance and pressure that you feel internally, do not aim that at yourself as if something's wrong with you. There's no difference between the high achievers and you, Alex. The only difference is your willingness to try something that's a little scary, to show up, to be seen, to share your ideas. There's this TED Talk that I absolutely love called Who Are You Really? And it's by Dr. Brian Little. He's a professor over in the UK. And the entire 20-minute talk is all about the fact that he's profoundly introverted in his life. But because teaching matters to him, he has taught himself how to be profoundly extroverted when he's teaching a class. Now, it's wildly draining for him because he's an introvert, but I'm trying to tell you, you're not in a fixed place. And confidence is a skill you can build if you're willing to try. And I can tell you are, because it matters to you. Okay, when we come back, I'm now going to teach you 5 simple tools based in the science that will help you build this skill called confidence. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. I'm Mel Robbins, and we are talking about confidence. And I'm really excited because I'm going to walk you through the 5 simple tools that help you build this as a skill. And tool number 1, take action. This is obvious. I understand. We have the definition of confidence. Confidence is the willingness to try. You're not going to change your life or build confidence by thinking about the things you need to do. You must take action. And so the best action to take, the number 1 tool for helping you take action in those moments where you feel imposter syndrome, or you feel nervous, or you're embarrassed, or you start to doubt yourself, or you feel anxious, whatever the feeling is, forget the feeling. Screw the feeling. We got to take action in those moments, because remember, we're building confidence. It's going to require you to try. Just use my 5-second rule. I told you the whole story about how I created it, the science behind it, in the episode we released way back in the day called Motivation is Garbage. I'll link to that. But if you're brand new to the podcast, let me give you the shortcut. When you're in a situation where you start to doubt yourself, you're just going to count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you physically move within 5 seconds. So here's how you can use it. Heather's talking about the fact that she wants to build confidence in this new role where she's been promoted. There are things that she needs to do as a new leader, but she doesn't have the competency yet. Instead of thinking about those things, she can use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, to interrupt that self-doubt, which is right there in the interior part of your brain and your basal ganglia. It's a pattern to doubt yourself. And as you start counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, your mind switches gears and your prefrontal cortex gets involved. And that's the part of the brain that controls your focus. It helps you interrupt thoughts and feelings of self-doubt. And it draws the part of your brain that will help you take action, will help you engage in strategic thinking, will help you encode new behavior and habits. It will help you tap into your courage. That's it. That's all that it is for Alex, who is surrounded by all these high achievers. The next time she's sitting in a classroom and she has something that she wants to share, instead of shrinking in her seat, she's going to try. And the 5-second rule is going to help. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then she's going to shoot that hand up in the air because you know what? Alex has something to say. And even though she doesn't feel comfortable, even though she might get a neck rash, even though her cheeks might go fire engine red, and even though she might stutter or stumble or have dry mouth or whatever might happen, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, she is willing to try. Because here's something I want you to understand. You can tap into courage before you start having that feeling of assuredness. Courage is what you tap into. Confidence is what you're building over time. I'm going to say that again. Courage comes first. Courage, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You start counting backwards, man, that is an act of courage because you're going for it. Courage comes first. Confidence is what builds over time. How cool is that, right? I absolutely love this because what I'm ultimately teaching you, and this again relates to all the research, is that there's 2 types of people out there. There are people who think about what they want to do, and then there are people that find the courage to take action. And that's what I want for you, because you're not going to think your way out of fear or doubt or insecurity. You're not going to think your way through your fears and anxiety. The fact is, you have greatness inside you. And I want you to start tapping into it. It's only through action that you unlock that power inside you and you become the person that you're meant to be. I mean, that's how I've created the life that I have now. If I didn't learn how to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, push myself to try, I'd still be sleeping in a bed, staring at the ceiling, consumed with anxiety, feeling like I had ruined my life. That's how you change your life. You have to take action over and over and over again. And so I think you get this. You get that you're not going to change or build confidence by thinking about doing this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop thinking and start taking some risks. Start trying. Put a bet on yourself. Let's frickin' go. Now let's do rule number 2. Rule number 2 is if you personally just tremble in your boots when you think about doing the things that you'd love to do. Let's get back to you. Let's get selfish. What is it that more confidence would have you be doing differently? When you think about those things, speaking up at work, launching your business, tackling your health issues, putting your online dating profile up and getting yourself back out there because you're ready and you've healed and the heartbreak is over and you're ready to have some fun again. When you start thinking about how confidence would change your life, I guarantee you're still going to feel a little nervous. So here's a second tool that's going to help you try. You can use the power of objectivity, okay? Let's make it less personal. Be the person you want to become or create an alter ego. This can be fun, you know. We don't have to white knuckle this confidence thing. Let's have some fun with it because there's a study out of Johns Hopkins that I love. And it's about letting go of self-doubt. And the study suggests that when you use an alter ego or you create a vision of the future you, the person you want to become, it gives you distance from the scaredy cat you who's never done this thing before. So ask yourself, you know what I always ask myself? I go, well, what would The Rock do in this situation? I just love Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. I constantly use him as my avatar when it comes to confidence. What would The Rock do in this moment? And I always get an answer, and it feels less personal Because you and I are friends. You can use The Rock. You can use me. What would Mel do if you're feeling unsure and you want to tap into the confidence that you kind of pick up on from me? And this also taps into an entire body of research that I talk about a lot on the Mel Robbins podcast, which is behavioral activation therapy. Decades of research show that when you start acting like the person you want to become in the future now, in your present life, it's one of the fastest ways for you to change your mindset, for you to create new habits. Why? Because when you start acting like the person you want to become in the future, you start acting like that person today, what are you doing? You're trying. You're trying to act like the future you would act. So let's go back to our first question. Heather, when she acts like the Heather 2 years from now, who's now gotten another promotion because she just slayed it in this role, the Heather today is trying to be the Heather she wants to become. Isn't that cool? Alex sitting in the classroom, surrounded by all these high achievers. When she acts like the Alex she wants to be 2 years from now, who's earned her doctorate, who is one of those high achievers, who is a bit more vocal, who is able to express her ideas, when she acts like that version of herself now, what is she doing? She's trying. How cool is this? It all just ladders right back to the research. That's why you can trust what I'm telling you. Another tool that you can use to build the skill of confidence is prepare. Because the more that you practice something, the more you're trying and the more competent you're going to be. So if you are nervous and you can't shake the nerves, double down on preparing. That's right. Do rehearsals. Run through it. Why? Because every time you rehearse something, you're trying it, and it gives your mind and your nervous system the ability to lower the stress because your mind and your nervous system have prepared so you know what's coming. See, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice prepares you. And what's one other thing about practice? What's the first thing that you learned about confidence? Again, I come back to the definition. It's the willingness to try. That's how you put the definition into life, by practicing, preparing for something, practicing something over and over and over, whether you're, like the Williams sisters, who literally stood there and hit balls 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 before they were even allowed to enter a tournament. What were they doing? They're building the skill of confidence. You want to be confident? Prove it by preparing. I use this all the time. A lot of people, I laugh, like, you see me get in front of a YouTube camera, or you see me walk onto a stage, or you listen to one of my audiobooks, and you're like, how do you do that? I've prepared, because when you're ready, just think back in your own life. Think about those moments in high school or college where you weren't prepared for the test. How nervous were you? You were shaking in your boots. You couldn't even concentrate. You knew walking into the test that you were screwed. Now think about a moment when you actually studied, which is just you practicing. You feel calmer, more assured. Why? Because you were willing to try by sitting in the stacks in the library instead of going out and cracking open the books. And that's what I'm talking about. This is something you build. Let me tell you about tool number 4. I love this. This is a mindset reframe. Because you got the 5-second rule, you've got the power of objectivity, what would Mel or The Rock do? You've got preparation. And now let me give you a mindset trick. I love this. I tell myself all the time why it's worth trying. The reason why I tell myself why it's worth trying. Why is it worth trying something if I'm only going to fail? Why is it worth going for it if I can't make my dreams come true? I'll tell you why. Because everything that you do in life is preparing you for something that hasn't happened yet. What did I tell you about confidence? Confidence is not something you build when you're winning. I think oftentimes when we're winning, what gets built is arrogance and bravado. And we forget what went into winning at something in the first place. True confidence, the skill of confidence, it's forged in fire. I've failed more times than I have time to tell you. You guys know that a decade ago, talk about failure, $800,000 in debt, unemployed, drinking my way through my problems. And all of that heartbreak and headache and breakdown in my life, which was horrendous to go through, it led me to the 5-second rule. If there was no debt, there was no drinking, there was no heartache, there would be no 5-second rule. When I was a talk show host, I was taping a talk show at CBS Broadcast Center here in New York City. It was a dream of mine to be able to have a daytime talk show. It gets canceled. It was leading me somewhere. Where? To this podcast, which is my most favorite thing that I have ever done in my career. See, I choose not to stay in a place of self-doubt. I choose not to wallow in failure because I know that life is always preparing you for something. And I know that your greatest failures, your biggest heartbreaks, they always teach you the most important lessons in life. You know, and I keep getting questions from you guys. Mel, oh my God, you're so confident. Like, what? You're 54 years old. You keep reinventing yourself. You keep trying new things like this podcast. What is it inside you, Mel? What is it inside me that makes me take all these risks, that makes me constantly try new things, that makes me willing to fail, to do something embarrassing or even disastrous? I'll tell you what it is. I want to get as much out of this life as I possibly can. And if you look at the math, I'm halfway through it. And it scares me to think that I could be on my deathbed and look back on my life and say, I wish I had tried that. I wish I had had the confidence to try that. I do not want to die and have regrets. And so while I'm here, while I'm breathing, while I'm able to, I am going to follow my curiosity. I am going to follow my heart. I am going to try new things. I am going to do absolutely everything that I can do to grow, to feel, to learn. And that's going to require me to take risks. That's going to require me to fuck up things. That's going to require me to look stupid. And I'm willing to do that because I know on the other side of the biggest heartbreaks of your life are the most amazing, heart-filled moments. I know that in the middle of every failure that I experience, and boy, I experience them oftentimes of my own doing, every single failure has, honest to God, equipped me with the lessons and the skill or the wisdom that I needed to be able to do something even cooler down the line. And I can prove it to you. Just look back on one of the scariest moments of your life, one of the biggest things that you just blew. I bet you can tell me that horrible thing that happened, that really hard thing that in the moment you were like, why is this happening to me? That right now, no matter what your life looks like, you can sit here and you know exactly what you learned from it. You know that you would not be the person you are today had it not been for that thing that you experienced, that you survived, that you learned from. And so what drives me is just wanting to experience as much as I can from this one life that I have. And it's not all going to be a joyride. And so I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to try. I'm willing to look stupid. And I'm willing to do it because I think the payoff that you get, it's worth it. It's so worth it. So this moment, it's preparing me for something that hasn't happened yet. And that reframe, what it does is it helps me put failure and heartbreak and all the hard shit in life into a box that is something that stays by my side as I move forward instead of a wall or a block or an obstacle that stops me from continuing to move forward, because that's how you move forward. You continue to try. And the final tool when it comes to building the skill of confidence is you have to focus on you, because nobody's coming. Like, nobody's going to try for you. Nobody is going to be there to motivate you to try. Nobody's going to be there to give you the pep talk. I'm here twice a week. It really is my mission that these episodes and our relationship through this podcast is one where you feel empowered and encouraged and you're reminded of who you are, that this is like a little reset, a pep talk, that you get the tools and the encouragement and the high five that you need. But ultimately, it's up to you. And you got to learn how to stop looking at the world around you and what everybody and their mother is doing. And you got to look right back in the mirror, because you are the one person that you're going to spend your whole life with. And it's time that you start to focus on that person and getting into a better relationship with that person called you.
Owner of the Brush Bar in Scottsdale is asking, imposter syndrome is real, especially as you try new things and grow in your career. Once you push through and decide to make change or make a change, what are some tangible things you can do in the short term to build your confidence?
So, great question. The research around confidence is very clear. Confidence is not a feeling. Here's a new definition of confidence. Confidence is the willingness to try. Confidence is the willingness to try. And the reason why this definition is critical is because the research shows that confidence, as we talk about it like a feeling, is gained from competency. Competency is a fancy word that basically means you know what you're doing. And the only way to know what you're doing is to practice it over and over and over again. And when you practice something, you start to gain skills and you lose your resistance and your fear around it. And that's where the feeling of confidence comes in. But in order to gain confidence, which is why I like the definition, you have to be willing to try something you've never done before. And so you have confidence and you display confidence when you're willing to try something. That's it. And so you got to keep that definition in mind. That's number one. Number two, it really helps me when I'm learning a new skill to imagine a bridge. I believe that all transitions and all like learning curves are just bridges. You start on one side and you have to cross a bridge and it's going to get you to the other side. Some bridges are like that one in San Francisco. Long, it's covered in clouds, you can't see the other side, but you know eventually you're going to get there if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You just keep trying. Another thing I want you to understand is that the single most confident thing that anybody could say is a 3-word sentence. Most confident thing. I don't know. When somebody is in a meeting and they're asked a question and you say, I don't know, but I can find out. I don't know. Don't you immediately trust that person? Mm-hmm. Of course. It takes a lot of confidence to just say that in a room. And so what I want you to understand is imposter syndrome only means you're on the bridge. The way you cross the bridge is waking up every day and just trying, just being willing to try. You don't have to have all the answers. You have to have the courage to say, I don't know. And when you focus on just waking up every day and trying, you build the skills, which lowers the resistance and fear, which makes you competent, which then makes you catch up to feeling confident. Uh-huh. Don't fake it. And I'm asking this because I completely understand the counsel and advice about removing things you're ambivalent about.
Yeah.
I would just like to know, though, because I do think that there's that kindness of acknowledging people and saying hello to people and calling them by name.
Yes.
But you're talking about like authentically, aggressively liking people.
I am.
So does it backfire if you fake this?
Okay. I struggle with this one because I don't love the idea of fake it till you make it.
Me either.
Yeah. But I understand that there are folks who have to employ that tool to step into themselves. So if that's you, that's okay. If that works for you, that's okay. But fake doesn't really work. And they've actually studied this. So Dr. Barbara Wild and her associates brought participants into her lab and she showed them pictures of people who were authentically smiling. In other words, when they took the picture, they were told, think of something that makes you happy.
Yep.
And then they had people fake smile. And they took the mood tests before and after. Everyone who saw the real happiness caught the mood. They actually had an improved mood score. Everyone who looked at the fake pictures had no mood change at all.
Wow.
So that means that if you want to be more contagious, if you want to spread positivity, likability, Real, authentic happiness is more contagious. However, the people who saw the fake picture did not have a worse mood. They just had no mood change at all. So the way that I would frame this is, I don't love you to be fake. It just makes you less impactful and influential. However, it doesn't have a detrimental effect on someone. And so if that's what you need to get through the day, or you're in a situation where you can't be like, well, I don't like you, so we shouldn't hang out, right? Then that's okay. It's okay to be fake to get through. But if you can, as much as possible, I think stretching into, or I put a question mark there on purpose. There are people in my life who I do have to fake it a little bit, but they're question marks. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic that one day we'll figure it out. I'm optimistic that one day we'll find something that we both like. I think that's okay. I think being fake with hope is okay.
That I like.
Yeah.
Because what's authentic is your desire that it change for the better. So you're not being fake at all.
No.
Got it. Okay. I just loved what you shared about likability, and it makes me wonder, what about vulnerability? Does that make you more likable?
Yes. Okay. So I think there's a misconception that to be likable, you have to be perfect or you have to be impressive. And so I'm a recovering awkward person. That was me for many years, trying desperately to be perfect and be impressive and have funny stories. And that doesn't work. In fact, vulnerability is one of the fastest ways to show likability. And there was actually a study that was done on this. This is by Richard Wiseman. So what he did is he had an actress go into the mall and do a smoothie demonstration. She was selling blenders. That was her fake activity. And she did a couple of demonstrations where she made the smoothie perfectly with the strawberries and the bananas, and she blended it up and she poured everyone smoothies. And they had everyone in the mall rate her on likability. Then they had a series of them where she spilled the smoothie. Okay. She dripped it, spilled it. Oh my gosh, so sorry about that. Just one little spill, didn't make a whole thing of it, but spilled it. Everyone in those studies rated her as more likable. What a gift to know that your mistakes make you more likable. The reason for this is because we know no one is perfect. We know this. And we also know that if someone is trying to impress us, they might be trying to cover something up. And so I love the idea of likable people are not prettier, they're not more impressive. Liking more people, yes, but also approaching them with your vulnerability. So being at a wedding, trying to make friends and saying to someone, I'm starving. Even a little vulnerability. When I'm trying to make friends, when I'm uncomfortable at a loud nightclub or a loud bar, I'm like, my feet are killing me. Are yours? Right? I think that sharing some of our fears, some of our weaknesses, that is actually a way to make everyone feel like themselves. And so being vulnerable, admitting mistakes, saying you're scared or uncomfortable, for a decade of my life, I tried to hide that I'm a recovering awkward person. And the moment that I started sharing, I am awkward, I feel awkward all the time, that's why I do this work, I felt like I could be myself. And then all these people started to tell me they feel like awkward people too. And that's when I started having real connection.
Vanessa, I am so glad that you hopped on a plane and came back. And I know that we are just getting started. And so I want to take a quick pause so we can hear a word from our sponsors who bring this to you at zero cost. And while you're listening to sponsors, I'm going to be sending this to my 3 kids. Sawyer, Kendall, and Oakley need to hear this. I know you have people in your life that need these tools and tactics, so be sure to send it to them too. And Vanessa and I will be waiting for you when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Mel Robbins. I'm so glad you're listening to this episode today because we have got the remarkable Vanessa Van Edwards. We are digging into the research around success and how you can use the habits of high achievers and influential people to level up in your own life. So, Vanessa, you can walk into a room and see who's influential, but can you teach us how to walk into a room and see somebody who's highly influential?
Yes.
Just distinguish?
Yes. So the very first thing, and I've noticed this in a lot of rooms, from both professional rooms to social rooms to even speed dating, is typically when a person is cued or tuned into someone or aware of someone, we angle our body towards them. Now, as adults, we get pretty good at hiding this, but our toes often give us away. So typically, when I walk into a room, I like to play a little game with myself. This is how I amuse myself. I try to guess who the boss is in the room based on where people's toes are pointing. Typically, we point our toes towards the most important person in the room. That is because subconsciously, our body is attuned to them, wanting to either talk to them, go go towards them or wants to read them. So whenever I'm in a room with like an influencer or celebrity, even if it's just a mingling, I can almost always tell that everyone is like, their eye is on that influencer, that celebrity or the boss, because their toes are pointed towards them. The only exception to this is when people have to go, you will notice their toes will shift towards the exit. It's if their brain are going, what's my escape? When can I get out of here? So one is always look at toe direction.
Okay.
It can also show you hidden crushes. Not always, but sometimes. Usually I can tell when someone has a little crushy crush on someone else based on where their toes, and that person will move, and the person's toes who has a crush on them will usually follow them, which is kind of a funny thing. So always pay attention to toes. That's the first way that we do it. The second thing is typically, not always, highly influential people claim their space. So all of this ties together. When you are assertive verbally, you are assertive emotionally, you're also assertive physically. And this has been proven. So researchers from the University of British Columbia studied athletes. And they studied athletes across genders and races. And they found that winning athletes who win a race, they take up a pride pose. This was popularized by Amy Cuddy's TED Talk, which had its own set of history, but they've actually proven that just the body language itself is repeatable. So winning athletes, they take up space, they lower their shoulders, they usually tilt their head towards the sky. And then there's two measurements that I think no one talks about that I want to talk about, that everyone misses. Yes, we get it. If someone walks in a room like Rocky, with their hands above their head, we get it, they feel good. But that's very socially aggressive. Like, I'm not going to advise people to walk into a room, I'm here, right? It's too much. What the two measurements that actually matter the most for being impactful or spotting an impactful person are the distance between our earlobes and our shoulder.
Wait, what?
I know.
The distance between
our earlobe and our shoulder.
So right now, I think I probably have I got 8 inches, 6 inches, something like that.
And so for you, that's maxed. Try to put your shoulders down as much as possible.
Like down? Okay.
Yeah, that's the most, right?
I just want to explain because you can see this on YouTube, but basically just imagine as you're listening that we are taking our ears, try to touch your ears with your shoulders and shrink down into your body. And that's what Vanessa's doing.
Yeah, turtle your head, put your shoulders up, try to touch your ears to your shoulders.
Yeah, look like pretend you're a teenager who's staring at your phone.
This is what happens. So as we do this, a couple things happen. One is we feel terrible. Do you feel terrible?
I was
yes,
like,
it feels terrible. So it feels terrible. Also, our vocal power drops. So it's very, very hard to actually give a lot of vocal power.
Yes.
I go into vocal fry when I do this because it's very hard. So it affects your vocal power. It affects your perceived confidence, like how you feel.
Yep.
And also affects how you look, right? You look less confident. If I were to give the entire interview like this.
And you can't see her right now, and she literally
I just hunched
just
my
was
shoulders.
like, hi, and she squeezed her shoulders up. You literally all of a sudden went from Vanessa, renowned researcher, to it's Vanessa in middle school. Yes.
This is the only difference. This one little cue completely changes your perception of me.
So for somebody who is introverted,
yes,
you are like the idea of the spotlight being on you is your worst nightmare, but you do want to become more assertive, or you at least want people to look at you and go, she's confident, he's confident, they're an influential person.
Yes.
What's the body language that you can start to practice?
Okay, well, first of all, I write books for you because I believe your cues can speak for you.
Okay.
Introverts, your cues are even more important because you can use small micro cues non-verbally to speak for you, right? Okay, so for an introvert or anyone listening, you want to maximize the distance between your ear and your shoulder pretty much at all time, especially on video. Here is a classic mistake that I see all the time. Hey, everyone. Hi.
You're on Zoom and your shoulders,
are up your ears. Or you're waving hello with your shoulders up your ears. Or they walk into a date or they walk into a meeting. Morning. Your first impression is now little, small, defeated.
Here's the cue I want to give you as you're listening. If you are like, but I'm shy, but I am introverted, but I do feel awkward in those situations. I want you to think about middle school you being terrified of seeing a group of cool kids.
Yeah.
And the badass powerhouse that we know that you are inside. And I want you to imagine that your friend Mel Robbins is on one side of you and your friend Vanessa Van Edwards is on the other side of you. And I want you to pull that body language together. That's what we're talking about. Because everybody can pull their shoulders back and drop them down and stand up taller or sit up taller.
That's it.
Okay.
And that one cue creates a loop. And here's what I want you to think about. If that's you thinking, oh my gosh, I'm scared, I am awkward, you can change the loop of your awkwardness with this one cue. Why? Is if you have your shoulders down and back, it signals to your brain, I am taking up space, I'm claiming my space, which then tells your brain, okay, we're safe, we're okay. The reason why we hunch our shoulders is to protect our neck. That is why we're doing it. When I
That's why we do that?
Yes, it's an evolutionary cue. So if I turtle my neck down and I tilt my chin down and I hunch my shoulders up, my throat is more protected. That is a more protected gesture. So there's an evolutionary reason why we do it. So if your shoulders are down and back, your head is held high, my jugular is showing, my brain says, we're safe. If you do the opposite, you're telling your brain, we are not safe, which then makes you have more cortisol, which shuts down your thinking, which makes you have dry mouth, which makes you blush, which makes you run out of oxygen, right? It creates all those awkwardness cues. So we can stop our awkward loops by simply changing our cues. So this is the first distance, is ear to shoulder.
I want to make sure you got that. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to follow along. As you're listening to us, as long as you're not driving a car, I want you to actually experience what Vanessa's talking about. So I want you to will you walk us through, like you take your chin and you point it down and you put your shoulders up.
Point your chin down as if you're checking your phone.
Yep.
Now hunch your shoulders up and then turtle your ears down. So you're as small as possible so your jugular, your neck is protected. If you sit like this, you are going to begin to feel more awkward and uncomfortable. You're going to lose oxygen.
Hard to breathe almost.
Yes. You're going to lose oxygen. You're going to have vocal fry. And here is the biggest aha of all. That is what everyone does when they check their phone. So accidentally, multiple times a day, you are putting yourself into defeat and shame body language. Accidentally. What are you doing before a date? Probably checking your phone. What are you doing before a presentation? Probably reviewing your phone. What are you doing before? So what I want you to do is check your phone differently.
How?
Okay, so when you're holding your phone, what I want you to do is up and out.
Up and out.
Up and out.
Up and out.
Right. So when I check my phone, especially before something important, I am not hunched over with my chin tucked in and my arms tucked tightly to my chest, which we're going to talk about in a second. I am up and out. So I'm claiming my space. My phone is up so that my chin is up. My jugular is still showing. If you check your phone like this, you feel so much more confident.
It's true. I don't have my phone with me, but if
you can look at my babies. I think there's a good picture of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so if I've got it up like this,
and you can even put your elbow down on the table. That's okay.
That's true. And now I'm like bicep flex.
You're like, wow, look how powerful. You look so powerful.
Like,
Mel looks so
I'm like, I gotta pull my phone out here and check it.
That's it.
Wow. And also, like, you can still like text while you're doing that.
Or you can rest your arms on the table. That's okay too. Like you're still looking out, right?
Up and out.
Up and out.
I love that.
Especially
okay, you said something about our arms.
Okay, that's
what
the
else
next
are we
cue.
doing with our arms?
Okay, so first cue, ears to shoulders. Second cue, distance between your torso and your arms. Watch this. So if you're listening, I want you to pin your arms tightly to your side, and I want you to try to roll your chest in, and then I want you to cross your arms over your chest.
Like you're giving yourself like a little hug in front.
You will begin to feel like, I'm a little nervous, I'm a little anxious, I'm a little uncomfortable. You will actually speak in shorter sentences when you sit like this. You're more likely to say no. In research, they find that when you're in closed body languages, you are more likely to say no based on this body language.
This pose, if you're not watching on YouTube, is the kind of pose you would imagine somebody sitting in a gymnasium at a dance where they haven't been asked to dance.
Yes.
And so as you cross your arms in front of your body and you kind of roll your shoulders forward, you do feel kind of like you're a loser.
Yes. And
like I'm literally like, wow, I could get attacked at any time right now.
That's it, because it's a protective gesture. These all come for a reason, right? These body language cues are not made up. The reason why they're universal, not all body language is universal, but the cues we're going to talk about today are universal. It's because there's a reason from an evolutionary perspective why this happens. So if I'm worried about someone attacking me, I want to protect my vital organs. I want to not have my flanks exposed, and I want to take up as little space as possible so no one notices me. So we forget that when we're sitting in a meeting or we're going on a date or we're trying to psych ourselves out, and we're sitting in the car and we're like, oh, I'm so nervous. We're actually creating a negative feedback loop for ourselves.
So what do we do with our arms?
Okay, so always, please make sure you are using a desk chair with armrests.
Okay.
So this chair is actually a little hard, right?
Because we're getting new chairs.
Do it.
They're higher
new
arms
chairs.
too.
These are okay. We have small armrests.
You and I are both very tall.
We're very tall. I know. So this is okay if you're a little bit shorter. It's okay. We have some. First of all, armrests immediately bring space. Now look at the difference between this.
That's true.
and this.
And for you listening, all we're doing is moving our elbows out to the side.
That's it. So I'm actually okay. I know my mom would not be happy with me. I'm actually okay with elbows on the table if they're nice and broad. You can see space. I'm not trying to be protective. It actually broadens my chest, which gives me more oxygen, which allows me to have more vocal power. So I want you to always choose the chair with the armrest. Like when I go into pitches or I'm talking to a client, I always pick the chair with the armrest. I never pick the low slouchy couch.
I don't either.
Never.
You know why else I pick a chair with an armrest? Because I like to swivel.
Oh, the swivel
and
is
rock,
so good.
And I like to cock an elbow on the back of the chair.
That's so good.
Like
this is so good. So confident.
I'm like super relaxed.
You're a cowgirl. That's basically what that is, right? Like, yes. And so that is a confident gesture. You're claiming space.
Yep.
You have freedom of movement. The other reason why I love a swivel is because we should be fronting with whoever we're talking to.
Oh,
Right.
so you by that, if you're listening again, you're seeing all this on the YouTube version of this episode, but if you are in a meeting and you're in a swivel chair, we want you to turn your chair and face the person who's actually talking.
Exactly. It is a nonverbal sign of respect when you swivel your chair towards them. You're literally saying, I'm going to angle my entire body to get on the same page as you. Tell me more. I'm aligned with you. And physically, from a research perspective, when we are aligned on the same parallel lines as someone else, we can see each other's body language better. We literally feel like we're on the same page. And so the swivel chair adds to that. And then if you can add armrests, that immediately broadens us. It immediately gives us more perceived and felt confidence.
You know what's super great also for someone, especially if you're listening and you're shy, you're introverted, you don't like the attention on you. These are nonverbal things you can do that, based on the research,
Yes.
demonstrate that you're confident, that you're influential, that you are respectful,
Yes.
that you are powerful despite the fact that you're not saying anything.
That's it.
What am I doing with my hands?
Okay, so they actually studied this. They took videotapes of leaders speaking and they had participants rate the leaders on their charisma, specifically their gestures. And they had all kinds of gestures in these videos. They found there was one single gesture that people rated as the most charismatic. And it is, I call it the power pose for the hands. It is a steeple.
Okay.
So a steeple is when you touch the tops of your fingertips slightly together and you keep space between your palms. It is the most calm, broad gesture for your hand. You can do it with an armrest. You can do it on the table. Right now, just be careful. Don't drum. That's evil drumming. That's very Mr. Burns.
Okay,
a
so
Simpsons
you're not
reference.
tapping your
We're
fingers.
We're not drumming. We're not drumming our fingers.
And
That's
if
very
you're
evil.
listening, everybody, and I want you to touch your pinky to your pinky, like literally make a triangle with your hands.
Just try this with me for a second.
Yeah.
It will actually make you feel more grounded when you do it.
It's almost like you got like superpower running from one hand to the other hand. You're like, zzz, you know, just as
And
you
the
put it there.
powers unite.
Correct.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a very relaxed gesture. Now, whenever I teach a cue, there are 97 cues, right? Not every cue is going to work for you. That's okay. I recommend, please try it 3 times in 3 different situations. Try it in a meeting, try it on a Zoom call, try it on a date, try it with a friend. If you've tried it 3 different times with 3 different people and you still feel ridiculous, you might not want to use it, right? I don't want you to feel silly.
What's the second recommendation for your hands?
Second recommendation? So, okay, I love a steeple. The other one is a very small, little, subtle gesture, but it's a cue of excitement. So leaders, highly effective people, are cueing people around them to know how to feel. Cues tell others how they should treat us. So this one's my really good one. This one's my favorite.
What is it?
It's this.
Oh, you're rubbing your hands together.
Yes.
So literally just rubbing your hands together as you're talking.
So like when I'm about to say something, oh, this is really good. This is really exciting. Even that small little gesture should be like, ooh, this is going to be good. I don't know why. I think it's because we warm our hands this way. But a very subtle one is if you're about to share something good or tell someone, like, oh, this is such a good little story. That one little cue, it shows excitement. It triggers excitement. So you can often go from the this to the this.
You know what I just got as you were doing that?
What?
It's almost like, you know, that's the motion you make when you're swiveling a stick to do a fire.
Make a fire. Oh, yes. So it's
So
like
it's
literally generating heat.
Yes.
We're
That's
literally-
so cool is what you're signaling.
We're generating conversational heat if you're going to go with the metaphor.
Wow.
Now, the common line, really, the bigger takeaway here is visible hands.
Okay.
So every gesture I could teach you is visible hands. It's a palm flash, it's a steeple, it's a gesture towards you. Visible is bare minimum. So highly effective people, they claim space with their shoulders and their arms. They have their hands visible because they want to show intention. Some gestures communicate 400% more information. Like if I were to say 3, you're more likely to believe my 3 than if I were to say 3 and hold up 5. So we just believe hands more often. So if I were to say, I have 3 really important things to tell you.
I'm looking at your hands.
You're gonna be like, it's
So
5,
and she's
Vanessa.
holding up as you're listening
5.
at all 5 Well, is your thumb a finger? Like, I don't even know. It's like you're like all
Yes.
5 fingers.
Yes, a thumb is a finger.
Okay.
Yes. By the way, hold up 5, but say 3.
3.
Horrible.
You just
Can't do it.
It doesn't. I'm trying to do it as you're listening. Why don't
it,
you try to do it
so
while you're
everyone
listening?
say, I have 3 ideas, but hold up 5.
I have
3
ideas.
Horrible.
Horrible.
Why?
I don't know.
I know. I'm going to tell you. That was a rhetorical question. I'm going to tell you. I was asking why to myself. So here's why. Is because it is very hard to lie with gesture. We are very used to lying with our words. And so it's very easy to say 3, 5, easy. It is very hard to lie with gesture. So if I were to say I have a really big idea and I were to hold up my hands like this and a very small, like I'm holding a little dime or a penny, you would say, Vanessa, it's small. So our brain subconsciously knows this. We are more likely to believe a gesture over a word.
Interesting.
That is why highly competent people are so good with their gestures, is they're basically signaling to you, I believe in my content so much. I know my stuff so well that I can speak to you on 2 tracks.
Mouth and hands.
Yes. And so another kind of expert levels, bottom is keep them visible. Keep your hands visible, out of pockets above the desk, right? I like to greet hands first. Second is, can you be explanatory? Can you add a punctuation or an underline or a highlight? If you're going to say, you have a big idea, show me how big it is. Is it beach ball big?
So for you listening, I really want you to get this. You might want to check out the YouTube version so that you can watch this. But as she was saying, big idea, she literally held her hands out to be demonstrative with her hands. And it does communicate
Underlines.
belief. And it's like you're right. It's like taking a highlighter with your meat mitts.
That's it.
And just being like, here we go.
Yes.
I believe in this.
And it's purposeful, right? So it's not just gestures for the sake of gestures where I'm just jazz handsing it.
Yeah.
It's like underlining purposefully. It's like giving someone an outline.
That's so cool. So how do highly influential people communicate?
Okay, so highly influential people, they communicate with their nonverbal, their vocal, and their verbal. We talked a little bit about body language. Last time we talked a lot about vocal, but we want to keep our voice nice and low. We also want to make sure we're not using vocal fry. So vocal fry is when we're like this. If you hear yourself using vocal fry, just speak louder.
Okay.
Volume immediately gets rid of vocal fry. So if you hear yourself going into that pattern where it's like a sizzling pan, just speak a little bit louder. Same thing if you hear someone using vocal fry, you can ask them to speak up.
Got it.
So nonverbal, we talked about. Vocal, we just talked about. We also talked about a lot in the last episode. Definitely go listen to that one. That was a fun one. Verbal. Verbal is the last big section. So we talked about labels. One thing I didn't talk about is how highly influential people use verbal patterns that change people's behavior. Here's one of my favorite studies. I think about this study all the time. What they did is they brought participants into their lab and they split them up.
Into their lap?
Lab.
Oh, I thought you was like, wow.
That's not that kind of
this
study,
is
Mel.
a study.
I don't know what they'd be able to do in their labs, but we were talking about body language. So into their lab. And I should be careful with that word. Now that you're doing it, it reminded me of that. Okay.
I think we were talking about body language, so I'm thinking about
You're like,
bodies.
people were sitting in their laps? That's so interesting. We should do all of your interviews like that. Okay. They brought people into their lab and they split them up into 2 different groups. The first group came into the lab, they were greeted by the researcher, and they were told, today you are playing the community game. And they went to explain the rules of the game and they played the game. The second group came into the same lab, the same researcher, and they were told, today you are playing the Wall Street game. But the trick was, the games were exactly the same. Everything was the same, except for that single word cue. So being told you were playing the community game versus being told you were playing the Wall Street game.
So Wall Street versus community.
That's it. Everything
Okay.
else was exactly the same.
Okay.
Can you guess what happened?
People that were in the Wall Street game immediately turned it on like, I'm going to win. And people who were told we're going to play the community game, they turned it on to be connected.
Okay. So
Am I right?
You're exactly right, but the outcome is a little bit sadder than that.
okay.
But the
Oh,
outcome
no.
is sad. You're right. The Wall Street people wanted to win, which means they shared an average of 1/3 of their profits. In the community game, people shared an average of 2/3 of their profits.
Wow.
In other words, people who were primed, where they heard the word Wall Street, thought about sharing or being less communal. So they didn't want to share as much. They were primed by the idea of Wall Street.
Wow.
Whereas people who were told they were playing the community game actually acted more collaboratively. This is an incredible study because it shows that we can change someone's behavior with one single word. So when you think about your calendar invites, what kind of calendar invites are you sending? I don't know about you, but I usually get call, meeting, one-on-one,
Yep.
conference, video call, Zoom. Those are sterile. They're not priming anyone for anything. You are actually telling someone, keep your brain on autopilot. This meeting will be exactly the same as all the others. What I want you to do is think about how can you play the community game? What do you want someone to feel, think, and behave like when they see that invite pop up in their inbox?
What do you recommend?
Okay, collaborative session, 2024 wins, goal meeting, mastery meeting, team session, team collaboration, creative hour, right? Like they're not long, but we're using words that are actually setting people up to feel and behave in those ways. I don't know about you, I open my calendar multiple times a day. So if you send a calendar invite that is purposeful, that is actually setting them up for success, you are priming them to feel and act that way every single time they open their calendar. That breaks autopilot.
I love that. We are implementing that.
Yes.
I'm yelling at everybody now. We're implementing that.
Yes, and no more emails that say subject follow-up. Follow-up is the worst subject line in history. Worst one in history. Yes.
Vanessa, I just love learning from you. And that brings me to truth number 3. Being yourself creates confidence. Because the more that you pretend to be somebody that you're not, the more that you pretend to like things that you don't really like to do, the more self-doubt, the more fear and paralysis that you're going to feel. I recently had this epiphany. I am a member of a family where everybody in my family loves to ski. And for years, I have pretended that I like to ski. And you want to know the truth? I don't like to ski. I really don't. And I finally said to my family this winter, you know what, guys? I love that we're a ski family, but I'm not a ski family person. And so you guys can ski, but I'm not going to really ski anymore. And I don't really feel the pressure to ski. And I want to tell you something. It was so liberating. Were they disappointed? Of course, because they want me out on the slopes with them. I don't want to do it. It doesn't bring me any joy. And I'm so done pretending to like things that I don't actually like. And so that's a simple example of how liberating it is and how much more confidence that you feel when you give yourself permission to just be you. And I'm going to give you another example. And this is really important because this one crosses into your professional life. And so I'm going to tell you a story from a couple decades ago. When I was in law school, believe it or not, check this out. Back in the early 90s, women did not wear pants when they worked in a large law firm. Like, not allowed to wear pants. How freaking bizarre is that? Well, that was just the way that it was, okay? And the thing is that when you talk about being your authentic self, I was just never a gal to wear a pencil skirt to work. First of all, you can't sit in them. I can't walk in them either. Secondly, it's just not my thing. And so I remember here I am in the early 90s. I'm in my 3rd year of law school where everybody's panic stricken about getting a job and you're applying to jobs and all of these big firms are coming to the campus to interview you, to hire you for jobs so that when you graduate, you have a job. And so I go to the mall and I go to Ann Taylor and I buy this navy blue pantsuit. It had this big wide belt on the blazer. It was just smoking awesome, especially for the early 90s. And here I am, I'm all dressed up to walk into my interviews, and I walk up the stairs to the main hall at Boston College Law School for my first interview. And as I'm walking up the stairs, a friend of mine is walking down the stairs, and he's like, whoa, I just knocked over my tea glass. This was so confronting. And he says to me, are you wearing that to the interview? Have you lost your mind, Mel? You know you're not going to get hired if you're wearing pants. And I said, yeah, no one I would want to work for. And here are the facts. Wearing a pair of pants meant that 95% of the places that I interviewed for, they didn't offer me a job. But I'm going to tell you what, I think it's the smartest move that you could make in life to be yourself. And remember what Dr. Romani said, it is also the bravest and one of the hardest things that you can do to be authentic because it means you have to stand on your own at sometimes. And what that means for me is that it meant that I not only got to wear pants to work when I did finally get hired somewhere, but I got to work at a place where I could be myself. I mean, just imagine the alternative where you have to walk into a job every day where you not only can't wear the kind of clothes that you like, but you don't feel like you can be yourself. I've had jobs like that. I'm sure you have too. How does it feel to sit at a job where you can't be yourself? It's draining. So wherever it is in your life that you're feeling afraid or full of doubt, or you're feeling drained and you're sitting there wearing a skirt and you wish you were wearing pants, I'm going to tell you something. You're not showing up as your authentic self. And the mistake that you're making is the mistake that I made for a long time. You're waiting for confidence so that you can change this. And I am here to tell you, confidence is waiting for you to show up. And I know this is easier said than done. This is what Dr. Ramani was saying when she says this is the hardest thing to do, to be your authentic self. It takes bravery because you're not going to feel like it. You're going to feel a little bit scared when you first start showing up as yourself and making decisions that really align with you and prioritizing your time and your energy to the things that really make you feel expanded. Here is the definition, backed by research and science, of what confidence actually is. Confidence is not a feeling. Confidence is an action. Confidence is the willingness to try. That is your new definition of confidence. I'm going to say it again. Confidence is the willingness to try. So even when you're full of doubt, if you move ahead and you do it anyway, you are building confidence. And the other thing I want you to understand is that confidence is not just something that some people are born with, some people aren't. That's not how this rolls. Confidence is something that you build every single day. Because again, let's go back to the definition. Confidence is the willingness to try. It's not a personality trait. It is a skill. And this is fantastic news, because if it's a skill, it means you can practice this skill and you can build confidence, because every time you try, you become more confident in who you're becoming. And that's the truth about life. It's that simple. Being yourself creates confidence. And that ties into this definition. I want you to try more. I want you to be brave, because every time you start to show up as yourself, the confidence is going to build. And look, if you have trouble pushing yourself to try new things, if you have trouble wearing the pants to the interview, if you have trouble putting yourself out there and speaking up and taking risks, here's a quick hack that you can use. It helps to find a partner to practice this with, okay? So who could that person be in your life? This little confidence pusher person. Do you have a very positive roommate? Do you have a brother or a sister or a cousin? Do you have an old friend? Do you have a buddy at work? Somebody that is going to push you a little bit out of your comfort zone. Somebody that is willing to get on board, to help you try some new things, to take some risks, to encourage you. And look, if you don't have somebody like that in your corner, just imagine that I'm there, because I'm always in your corner. You can imagine, well, what would Mel say right now as you're getting dressed for the interview? You know what I would say. Wear the pants. If you feel like yourself in the pants, wear the pants. Stop pretending that you're not that person. Be yourself. And so if you're somebody that wants to put yourself out there more, practice going up to people and talking about the business that you're launching. And if you don't have that cousin or that sibling or that roommate that's like, come on, get over there. Just imagine that your friend Mel Robbins is there going, come on, sign up for that 5K. Come on, let's go. I'll be the one that's whispering in your ear, we can do it. You can do it. I'm going to be right there by your side. Because the third truth about living your most authentic life and being your true self is that when you start acting like you, the real you, it creates confidence.
I hated that I didn't raise my kids close to my parents. We, just life, you just end up living somewhere else. And I grew up in a tiny town in Western Michigan, and I didn't grow up with a lot of family around us either. But when I left for college at 18, I never went home. And I think I've synced up that I've now sold this house and we're no longer, they're not coming back. And if I could have changed anything, although it's not true, actually, this is how regret and the bullshit ego fucks with you. I could have changed it because I could have moved back to that small town in Michigan if it meant that much to me. I wasn't willing to do it. And they weren't willing to move out here. Yeah. And I sit here and torture myself over the what could have been, And then I tie it up in a nice little bow around this transaction of selling a house, which is the right thing to do. Because the interesting thing is the second that we made the decision to sell the house, which all the kids were on board, our daughter was like, you know what? I'm going to be staying in LA for the next couple of years anyway, because I need to work on my career. And our daughter's like, I actually am sick of living in Boston. I think I might try Denver out. And I'm realizing, and our son is the happiest he's ever been going to high school in Vermont. I'm the one gripping. Time for some radical confidence, bitch.
And here's the beautiful thing is giving yourself space to understand why you're feeling that. And that honestly is what radical confidence is all about. I was the one that was ignoring it, pretending that didn't happen, or pretending I wasn't feeling the way, instead of just, again, acknowledging it, giving yourself the grace, being, okay, this is why. It's not going to hold me back, but I need to give myself the grace to feel this. And now with radical confidence, come up with ways that I can work through it so that I'm never deterred by these emotions that I'm having to deter me from my why. Because that's the most important thing, is that sometimes the emotion that I'm going, right, this too shall pass, whether it's up or down, in your highest, most exciting moments, this too shall pass. And in your devastating moments, this too shall pass. And just knowing that our emotions are never going to be straight, how do you keep perpetually moving forward towards the goal and the life you want? And to me, it is about acknowledging it with no judgment, understanding where it comes from, and then putting in some tools in order to keep moving forward towards that dream. And for you, it's towards this new house, this new life that you want to set up for yourself.
So true. Greater impact, more creativity, more ease. I love it. More time with friends like you. Well, Lisa, you have literally showed me that I need to do the exact opposite of what I have been doing. And so I will let you know how it's going. I am confident that radical confidence is going to work for me and is going to be a real lifeline and a set of tools that I can use to tap into the confidence that's in me to be able to walk towards something, even though it scares me to death. I love you. I'm so proud of you. Too. Thank you for making a huge difference in my life today.
And in order to set up our conversation about these 3 simple decisions that will make you feel incredible, I just want to underscore how important it is that you don't just listen today, but that you take action and you try what I'm about to teach you. Because you don't change your life by just thinking about changing it. You change your life by doing something. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The decisions that you make to do something or not. And so many times in life, you will find yourself stuck in this gap between knowing what you need to do versus doing it. Knowing isn't enough. And I can give you a bazillion examples of this. You can know what you need to do in order to be healthier. You know that you need to exercise, yet you don't make the decision to do it. You may know that you need to work on your resume if you'd like to get a new job, yet you don't make the decision to sit down and work on it. You may know that you need to call a particular person back. It's going to be a difficult conversation. You think about it all, but you don't do it. There's this huge gap between knowing something and making the decision to do it. And one of the reasons why it can be really hard to bridge this gap is because you don't feel motivated. You don't feel motivated to exercise. You don't feel motivated to work on your resume. We're going to talk about the other reason why you can get stuck in this gap of knowing what you need to do, but not doing it. And the reason why you can get so stuck is false confidence. You have this false confidence about what you're capable of or how your decisions are going to impact you. And I'm going to give you an example that I know that you are going to relate to. And then we're going to get down to these 3 decisions and how false confidence is a part of this. It happens to me all the time. In fact, false confidence just swooped in and bit me in the rear end last week. Let me tell you how it impacted my decisions. So I was out in Vegas for work, and I was there because I was giving a speech for Keller Williams, a big real estate company. There were 17,000 people in the audience. And after the speech and the meet and greet and all that stuff, my team and I, we went out and we had a great dinner together. We were celebrating. We were wrapping up a great week. And it was an early night. I love an early night. And so we all kind of piled into the Uber and we were heading back to the hotel. And we were getting back to the hotel. It was only 8:45 p.m. I mean, that's kind of amazing. I'm not one of these people that needs to close down the night in Vegas. And I also had a plan. I had been looking forward to going up to my room after dinner, and I was going to run a hot bath, and then I was going to soak in the tub. And the hotel that I stay in always gives you these little packets of salt. And so I can pour the salt in the tub, and I can soak in the tub, and it's quiet in my hotel room. There's no dogs, no family. I could just relax. And then I could pack up my stuff, beforehand. So then I would climb into bed. I'd get a good night's sleep, and then I'd wake up early enough to be able to get a workout in and still get out the door for my 6:30 a.m. flight. I mean, I was so excited. But as we're heading back to the hotel in the Uber, and we're cranking the tunes, and the group was like rocking on the high of an incredible week in Vegas and the great dinner that we had, I just didn't want the day to end. I mean, do you know how hard it is to say while you're getting out of an Uber, this is great. What a great week. I love you guys. I'm going to give you a hug right now because I got an early flight and I'm going to head upstairs. And in the long run, that saying goodnight is the best decision. Why? Because it's going to make you feel incredible tomorrow morning. But then someone in the group says, as you're pulling up to the hotel and you're starting to say goodnight, what? You're not going to bed, are you? Come on, we're in Vegas. Hang out a little. Let's have a nightcap. You've been in a moment like this 1,000 times, haven't you? Do you stay out a little longer and hang out with your friends? Or do you call it a night and you get a good night's sleep? Now, sitting here listening to me, you're like, oh, you get a good night's sleep. No, you don't. No, that's not the decision that you make. Come on, let's weigh the options here. You're having a great night. Do you join your friends in having a drink or smoking a joint or eating that dessert? Or do you say no? Because you've either had enough or it's just not your thing. That's the decision. And the mistake that you and I make is we base the decision on how it's going to feel right now, instead of making a decision based on how it impacts you in the long run. It is so easy to say, oh, you're right. I'll stay out a little bit longer. But easy decisions make your life hard. When you learn how to make a hard decision, life gets easier. And that was the exact situation I was in last week in Las Vegas. I could have easily said, you guys go have some fun. I need to go to bed. I got an early flight. I want to go take a bath. But see, here's what happened. False confidence comes swooping in. This is not about motivation. This is about false confidence. It swoops right in that moment when your emotions are all swirling around and you literally think that your decision in the moment will not impact you in the future. And as I say to my friends, oh, you're right. I'll just stay out a little bit longer. What happens? Oh my God, next thing you know, it's freaking midnight. You've talked about nothing. Your flight hasn't changed. It's leaving at 6:30 in the morning. You still have to pack. You haven't taken a bath. You're definitely not exercising in the morning anymore. But somehow when you said, oh, sure, I'll just stay out a little bit longer, you had this false confidence that you could somehow handle it all, that somehow time would freeze for you, just you awesome human being, Mel Robbins, and that this decision in the moment to just scrap all the plans that you had, it's not going to impact me tonight or tomorrow morning, that somehow, Mel, you're the only human being who's not going to be affected by staying up too late. Of course I was affected by this decision. I didn't take my bath. I still had to get up at 5 a.m., but this time, not to exercise. I had to pack. I mean, I was racing around like a lunatic in that hotel room at 5 a.m. trying to get myself packed up so that I could catch the flight on time. I didn't feel incredible. I felt horrible. I was mad at myself. I had that feeling that I'm sure you felt before where you're like exhausted. And now you're on the way to the airport and you're like, why the hell did I do that to myself? I could have felt so different right now. And there's so many examples of false confidence. I mean, it's everywhere in life. And one other thing I want to underscore here is that it is so easy to see this in other people. Like the true skill is catching it in yourself, which I did not do in Vegas last week. You can see it in other people. Like, for example, I'm sure you have a friend. We all have a friend who literally you cannot understand why they continue to date losers. People that treat them like garbage. And your friend will be like, I know he doesn't give me the attention I deserve, but he's trying to improve. And you can spot their false confidence a mile away. You're like, you're deluding yourself. You are not a special princess. You are not going to turn this frog into a prince. He is not going to magically turn from a person who treats you badly to a person who treats you well, and you know it, but you are falsely confident. Boom, you can see it in someone else. Maybe you spot this false confidence in your boss every time they walk into a meeting. They're like, so we're going to add this huge project to your workload, and it's due in a month, and no, I'm not hiring anybody else, but we can get it done. You're thinking, what planet do you live on? Like, you are deluding yourself with this false confidence. Or your sister declares, I'm going to lose 30 pounds, but she's not changing her diet or exercising at all. I mean, based on the way the world works, that's not going to work. But false confidence. It always convinces you that the laws of nature and science and common sense, well, they don't apply to you. You can just declare this stuff and suddenly time shrinks, or your body does, or people magically change around you. That even though it is the wrong decision or the wrong approach for anyone else on the planet to do it, somehow it's going to work for you. I mean, I do this all the time. I literally say, you know what? I think I'm going to clean out my closet over lunch today because I think I can get it done in 30 minutes. Oh, yeah. Mel. Exactly. You know what happens in 30 minutes? I tear everything apart, and then I've got a gigantic pile on the floor of my closet. False confidence is what created that. Yeah, Mel, you're the exception. You're the one person that can clean out an entire closet in 30 minutes flat and get everything hung up, color coordinated, and folded perfectly like you're at a store at the mall. Time stops for you, Mel Robbins. A night of partying won't give you a hangover. Your metabolism is superhuman. This is false confidence. It's when you ignore common sense, the research, the science, what you know to be true. And in fact, researchers and psychologists have a word for this because it's such a well-established cognitive bias. It's called the overconfidence effect. It's like this magic potion that we drink where you delude yourself into thinking, oh, if I were giving somebody else advice, I would tell them to go to bed at 8:45 so they can catch their flight and exercise and take a bath and get a good night's sleep. But if I am in the situation, I can make a decision, and those same rules do not apply to me and they will not affect me. And I'm explaining this concept of false confidence because it's killing your mornings. I'm serious about this. False confidence is showing up in 3 places every single morning. And it's very sneaky, by the way. Very, very sneaky how this false confidence is showing up in derailing your mornings. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.